vengeful? Well, that's the focus of tonight's angle. Do not think for a minute that they didn't know the power of their words.
That man cannot see public office again. He is not only unfit, he is destructive to our democracy, and he has to be eliminated.
Let me know who I got to vote for to keep Hitler out the White House.
Took to social media and highlighted language from Nazi Germany. This kind of rhetoric is unsurprising coming from the former president, and it is appalling.
Well, the angle warned about their rhetoric echoing throughout the media. If he's a dictator in waiting, if he's an autocrat, they even called him Hitler. Of course they're going to justify doing anything to stop Hitler, to beat Hitler, anything. Indeed, Liz Cheney herself has signaled that patriots needed to step up and ensure that Trump didn't ever get near the White House again.
I will do whatever it takes to ensure Donald Trump is never again anywhere near the Oval Office, and I mean it. The most important thing is to make sure Donald Trump is nowhere near the Oval Office ever again. That commitment remains. So I'm going to do whatever I need to do to make sure that that's the case.
Whatever it takes. What does she mean by that?
What does
Well, clearly the accused gunman was on board with that message. He had marinated for years in the most vicious anti-Trump rhetoric that has become increasingly accepted on the left since, I really think, starting in 2015. Now, obviously, Ryan Wesley Routh hasn't been convinced that the debate ended Trump's chances, so it seems like he had to take matters into his own hands.
I would think we're going to find that this guy's extremely politically motivated and that he probably was spurred on by much of the political diatribes that are going on these days, talking about Trump, equating him to Hitler and things like that. So I don't think this is the last we'll see of crazies out there trying to do this.
Well, Americans, I don't think, want to believe that leaders in our government are asleep at the switch, or even worse, purposely underestimating or stoking or even allowing real attempts on Trump's life. But now there have been two incidents. Now, if someone else is allowed to get near President Trump with a gun, it'll be hard to put Humpty Dumpty back together again, meaning our faith in the government. And it brings to mind an old Ian Fleming quote from the book Goldfinger. Once is happenstance, twice is coincidence, 3 times is enemy action. Now, it's gotten so bad that a sitting U.S. senator is publicly expressing his deep reservations about the federal response. Utah Senator Mike Lee wrote on X, "Thank you, Governor DeSantis, for investigating the attempted assassination of Donald Trump in Florida. We can't trust the feds, but we trust you." Well, Lee is 100% justified in feeling this way. Think about this. Think about how little we know 2 months later about the first shooter, Thomas Crooks. He was killed by a sniper after he managed to get off his own shots at Donald Trump. But we know so little about him. It's like we don't even talk about it anymore. Anyone else find that odd?
We don't talk about it at all.
Is it unreasonable at this point for millions of Americans to believe that the investigation is being slow-walked,
anyways, that it didn't
or maybe purposely stalled, or information purposely withheld? Now, as I said on the night of July 13th, just hours after Trump was grazed by that bullet, in the absence of information, conspiracy theories continue to run wild. And rather than pushing for more information, demanding answers, our corporate media, well, it just makes matters worse. They'll ignore, they'll downplay the danger posed by crazed leftists, claiming that even if the wannabe killers are repeating anti-Trump mantras, well, that doesn't mean it's in any way connected to Kamala Harris.
We don't know much about this guy yet at all, other than he was somebody who was trying to find a way in his mid to late 50s, go and serve on the front lines of Ukraine, and he obviously had some anti-Trump posts, but has nothing to do with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. It has to do with the fact that this is his political belief.
Now, why is it Dana Bash's job to try to defend the Harris-Walz campaign here? I mean, she crashed and burned when she tried to debate J.D. Vance over the weekend, and this was even worse. So isn't she, I think, supposed to be an objective anchor who's supposed to figure out the truth? Maybe ask the Harris campaign if, they'd like to reconsider how they answered this question after the first assassination attempt.
How has the rhetoric changed in light of the assassination attempt with being here at the RNC and representing the DNC and Biden-Harris administration?
It hasn't changed.
No, that hasn't changed. Trump's still a dictator in waiting. Well, that was disappointing, but it wasn't surprising.
She's not a dictator.
But then we heard at the DNC and at the debate, Kamala Harris insisted that she would reach out and try to bring the country together.
We are charting a new way forward. We are all in this together. In unity, there is strength. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people.
But Saturday, all we got from her was a tepid, rather generic-sounding statement released on social media. Well, today, Biden, who has a little better political judgment than Harris, was a little more emphatic, underline a little bit.
Let me just say, there is no, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, those of you who know me, many of you do, no place in political violence for political violence in America. None. Zero. Never. I've always condemned political violence. I always will in America. In America, we resolve our differences peacefully at the ballot box, not at the end of a gun.
But none of this is enough. After all, a year ago, Biden was himself taking the temperature up, allowing the DOJ to go wild and go after Trump. And meanwhile, it still didn't help him politically. All the stuff he put on Trump, all the stuff he said about Trump, and Dark Brandon, and still Biden's out. And Harris, I think she's still making the same mistake he made.
MAGA forces are determined to take this country backwards. They promote authoritarian leaders and they fan the flames of political violence
As you have
that
a
are a
Satan
threat
background.
to our personal rights, to the pursuit of justice, to the rule of law,
Shouldn't that be blue
to the very
since you're
soul
blue,
of this
not
country.
red?
Now, how sick is that, looking back? Trump was fanning the flames of violence? Where exactly? At the pro-Hamas protests? Or was he doing that after the George Floyd or at Justice Kavanaugh's home? I was thinking about this today. If Harris and Biden really want to end the conspiracy theories and bring the country together, all this unity stuff, well, Harris needs to make a much more vigorous stance here. And you know what would speak volumes? Why not invite former President Trump to the White House? You can all meet in the Oval, can all emerge together, announce that an executive decision has been made to ensure that Donald Trump has all the protection he would have if he were a sitting president of the United States. The upshot from Biden and Harris can, at that point, truly be, we're all Americans. And if you attack one of us, you attack all of us.
Facts.
There are only 45 people who have held the office of the presidency, and Trump is one of them. He and all Americans need to know that we're 100% committed to ensuring his safety and his security. His running mate, his Vice President Harris and Waltz, all of them must be safe. Maybe you can even say at times our rhetoric has gotten too heated. We should tone that down too. And further, of course, say that we're going to be totally transparent. We're going to expedite all investigations with factual conclusions, not political conclusions, and recommendations that are clear and accountability that is just unquestionable. Now, and we're not going to do this in months. We're going to do this in weeks. And why not say this is America? The voters must be the ones who determine the outcome in November, not an assassin's bullet.
The elections
Period.
are rigged. Your vote
Now,
don't matter.
given that they'd also have to dial back their own Trump as a dictator
gonna
nonsense,
win.
this probably won't happen, but it should. Both sides can make it about the issues. But it's not just the election that's at stake here. How this moment is handled affects the credibility of the entire U.S. government. And if Harris were smart, and I know that might be a big ask, her number one priority right now would be to make it known nationally and throughout the world that everything in the federal government's power will be done to keep Donald Trump safe. And that's the angle.